Where did it go? Here. So a laptop with all connections, that's really good, eh? Not a Mac with dongles. So this presentation, if it will show something. Seems to work. Good. Yeah, it's about Ansible, of course. How many of you are aware of Ansible, know what it is, or use it? Oh, that's really good. That's quite a lot. I've got some swag to share, so questions are appreciated. So if you have some questions, you'll get to pick some swag. And you can also contribute. So this presentation is on GitHub. If you see a mistake, you get really good swag. And I've got one of them. It's a speaker from Ansible Fest, Bluetooth speaker. So if you see a mistake, contribute and I'll merge it and you'll have the speaker then. You can also follow along, of course. So scan the code or just visit that page and go to the presentations section. A bit about myself. I work at ING and I like Ansible a lot. It's simple for me. It's exactly my type of language. I actually did art school, so that's probably why Ansible is easy and good for me. I'm not so much of a programmer, so maybe you'll see some improvements. And I'd like to open the floor for discussions. So there's quite a few statements in this presentation, and if you think I'm incorrect or there's a better way, then let's open the discussion and see what's there. So the norm. Anyone heard of Jeff Geerling? Jeff Geerling, yeah. It's my god, so to say. I really like him a lot, and he makes roles and code too. So let's open up a role for anyone that has never seen Ansible, and briefly scroll through it. This is Jeff. This is Ansible Galaxy, where you can publish your roles, so you can pick up on another one. To be honest, many people don't use or recycle other people's code, but at least it's a good way to steal some code, a part of it at least, and implement it yourself. If you find any role, if it says Jeff Geerling or Geerling Guy, it's probably good enough. So let's have a small look into this repo. Make it a bit bigger, somewhat visible, I guess. Ansible has a certain structure here. Tasks is where it starts, where you can tell Ansible what to do, like copy a file or start something up or install a package. You can do a lot more. The testing is done with Molecule. That's quite common these days. It's a great tool if you need to test something, but that's not what this presentation is about. I understand in 2 weeks' time there's a discussion on Ansible or a presentation by AT Computing. Certainly worth it if you write Ansible code and would like some way to test it. It's really very, very convenient. This is, by the way, the most popular role on Galaxy, so it must be good. I checked it. I think it's a bit too complex even for my taste. But these tasks, they are just a list of steps. Should be readable. Like install some package or start something up. It's quite simple, to be honest. It should be. So for me, if I read Ansible code, I really like to see that I understand it. So that it should fit in a page, for example. That's quite logical what it does. I don't want to guess what it does. It needs to be very, very simple. So if you ever need to know what the norm is, any role by Jeff Geerling is probably good enough. My personal principles is that simpler is better, and that's a bit of a discussion because I work at ING, and ING likes complexity. So it starts with a very complex edge case and code towards that, and I think try to keep it as simple as possible. It will get complex in your enterprise environment. So the simpler this is, the stronger it is, the better chances it has to survive. And another one is focus on the user. So if you need to develop a role, probably start with the interface. What you want users that are going to consume that role, what you want them to fill in or expose. So in that other example, let's briefly look at that interface. that's listed in defaults, main, and this, without explanation, this should be understandable. And I think it is sort of, gets a little more complex here and there, but fine. Has a version in there that's a little weak because that needs attention then. So as a developer of the role, then you at least need to test it periodically to see if it works. So I'm not a big fan of that, but sometimes you must define the version to be able to download it or do something to it. So anyway, simpler is better and focus on the user. Here's a few examples of simple or more complex. Can you read the screen?
Yes.
So if you think the top one is simpler, raise your hands. Okay, and if you think the bottom one is simpler, raise your hands. Oh, that's one. That's interesting. Okay, I think the top one is clearer, but it is really a style or a taste thing. I think the top one is clear because it reads more like a book. Start at the top left and end at the bottom right somewhere. And where with the bottom example, it's scattered more, so I don't see it directly what it does. Like that update cache is a bit hidden. I can't really see it, or not directly. Where if it was on a new line, on a single line, I would prefer that. Sorry, Basi?
With items with your
Yeah, with these are a bit silly examples. So for example, the update cache, no, I think it's default, so you don't need to mention it. If you loop over something with items, which should be loop, and it has one item, it's not required. So this makes it more complex. Say again? Yeah, you don't even need to loop it with YAM. With the package modules, you don't need to loop. They can accept lists straight away. And if it's one package, you don't even need the list. So this is a bit more tricky one. This is a configuration for a role, probably Apache or so. And there's two samples. They do the same thing. Who thinks the top is easier or simpler? Yeah. Yeah, okay, quite a few. And the bottom, what's simpler? Okay, so it's 50-50 or so. Let me explain what I think is easier, the bottom one. Because if I just need to change the port, in this bottom example, it would be one variable, one line that needs to change. If I want to change something here, I need the whole dict. So I need to specify the port and again SSL enable. I can't override that. Although the top one looks attractive or so, so you see that it's the same section of configuration. I think the bottom one is easier to override and easier to consume. Opinions differ, so don't take it as it's always true. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, you want a discussion, right?
Yeah.
All right, so what I was thinking is, wouldn't you set port with a variable, port number with a variable, and then have that change somewhere else anyway? Yeah. And then the top one is easier to read.
Yeah, you could use both, so to say. Yeah, but why would you then? Yeah, it's possible.
Well, you could have an Apache role and,
Yes.
and an Nginx role, which is basically both there setting an HTTP
Yeah.
port.
Mhm.
So you could just merge some maps together.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
That's true.
so you're kind of you're separating it.
Yeah.
Kind of map level.
Yeah, fair.
Also, if there's a single service that you need to change multiple parameters in,
Yeah.
it's easier to find like a certain service, like for
Yeah.
example in this case HTTP, and just change all the parameters in one place.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to find HTTP port, HTTP.
That's fair. That's fair. What is a good hint anyway, speaking about this, is if you have variables, prepend them with the name of the role. So in this case, HTTP. So you're sure that they're not used anywhere else. Otherwise, you could run into weird problems, variable bleeding, where you think, hey, I said port, just port, and I don't know, postfix is listening to port 80 now. That's weird. So prepend it with something unique, and probably the variable name or the role name is interesting.
And the monitor for itself.
Well, if you have a little prefix that is unique to all your repos.
Yeah.
Because there's more people writing roles for Apache than you will.
Yeah, there are. But there's just two people you can use these roles from, as Jeff Geerling and mine, of course. No, I'm just kidding. You're right. Maybe you could even make them more unique, so to say. On inclusion of the role, by the way, you can set the variables per scope of the role. So then if you would have 2 HTTP roles, which is awkward, but maybe possible technically, you can still scope the variable towards that single role, which does not lead to another role. So if you write something, I typically use this list. Is it good enough? And also debatable. Does it fit into one screen? And this is a massively hard one, because if we write code at ING, for example, it does not fit in one screen. And
Should get that up.
Is that because you're the small resolution Philips monitor?
no. I think
Start moving sideways. You get more in.
I think Jeff states, for example, don't make it more than 100 lines. Fair, something like that. It should be simple. So in one overview, you should understand the logic. Here it imports something, here it does something, and there it finishes or so. Just a few steps. If it becomes too long, you have some options. You can split it into different roles. So if it is really a different role, maybe if you can recycle part of the code for another role, then it's definitely a new role. So let's say Zabbix, for example. You could say, I've got one Zabbix role that does the repository and the web part and the agent part and the proxy part. That will get a very long role. So I split them all up, for example, into repositories, something they all use, and then components on top of that. So the agent and the web part and the proxy part. It also makes it much easier to maintain. So if it's less code and its function is absolutely clear, it's much more easy to test and maintain. So good advice. If it fits on a screen, it's probably a better plan. Yeah.
I have a quick question. Why are points 1 and 3%?
Oh yeah, that's a mistake. So now you can contribute and get the speaker. So take 3 out, please. Yeah, it's a nice speaker. Let me. Now I'll show it later. Yeah, whoever contributes first, it gets it. Yeah, could you explain to your partner? So that's a bit awkward, eh? Partner, you can replace it with grandmother. What? Co-worker. Yeah, but co-workers are also, they know what you're doing, so they will understand. Manager. Yeah, some non-technical co-worker. It sounds strange, but if it's well written, it works. So you've got the name parameter, which you can define. This does whatever. It should be clear. So think about those names. They really help to make you understand the role better, or to make someone that uses your role better. Third one, yeah, we covered that, right? Yeah, sometimes you think you're done or the evening is over, or so it's like, yeah, it's working, but it's not so great. So do you feel an urge to refactor it? And if you do, yeah, take your time for it. It probably needs some more time. And shell and command, was it used often? Now I was a bit, I analyzed my own roles and I used command quite a lot. So let me step out a bit. Let's see, how are we on time? Yeah, good enough. So we went to Ansible Fest last week, and the big announcement was that all the modules will go out of Ansible and they will go into collections. So that's really a new thing. I think the developers of Ansible had some troubles getting the release done with 3,000 modules or so. So they said, let's get them out. It will happen in 2 releases, so 1 year. That's really quick. It's probably going to be called Ansible 3.0 or something, because it's not backwards compatible. And yeah, you should then use these collections to get your modules. So there's very many unknowns to it, so a lot of difficult stuff. At least I thought, how many modules am I using? Let's analyze it. So I tried to grab through the roles a bit. And this is the list. So number 1 is package, fine. That's a module, that's great. Service, good. Third one is command, not so good, to be honest. It is what it is, so they all work. But yeah, I was hoping this would not show up on the top 10 or somewhere very low, but it isn't. And the rest is quite logical. Do you understand why you would want to use a module instead of command? Yeah, I see some yeses, some nos.
Why you would use one?
Yeah, why? So the
This command wouldn't have a state detection. It would
Yeah, or
definitely
difficult, at
fire
least.
zones.
Yeah.
You can't use it in check mode. You can't do it.
yeah, and there's all kinds of weird tricks you can do to make it idempotent and check mode, make it work, but
And it
difficult.
makes it unreadable.
Exactly, your code gets much more complex, so not so good.
You rather install a package.
Sorry?
Will you rather install a package to avoid or a module or a
Yeah.
library,
So if you are able to use a module,
go with the library to avoid
Yeah.
using a command.
yeah, I would rather do
Control
that.
Can also include libraries.
Yeah, so there's a side step also. Now, currently, you can already distribute modules in the libraries directory of a role. That's sort of a hidden feature, or not really hidden, but not super known. It's possible. It's not very well exposed or so. Collections will probably replace that. And the collection, so at first I was thinking maybe F5. F5 is a big contributor to Ansible. They will have their collection, fine, that's very logical. So they have their own pace of releasing stuff. Maybe Microsoft with Azure has its own collection, but anything will go into collection. So I'm a bit worried because it's an extra level of dependencies. I'm not sure. Many people are not sure. These are dark days for Ansible, so to say.
But is it all the vendor stuff?
Everything. Also copy, package, whatever, generic modules, everything. And the expectation is that the speed of development of Ansible will go down a bit, but the speed of the development of the collections or modules will go up a bit, or at least it's separate. They can release separately.
You also have to install these modules before you can actually use them.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking, how many modules do I use and what collections would I need to install then? Yeah, this looks quite generic, so hopefully the core collection or so. I'm not sure what, or the stable collection maybe it's called. I don't know yet.
Does this mean we can have APM, Ansible Package Manager?
Yeah.
Possibly not.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what I heard, and it's not official, so don't take this as the truth. Now it's released as a mechanism where you can target your modules, place them on the automation hub, some Red Hat product, which is a problem in itself because how do you do it in the open source world then? Or maybe automation hub will be open sourced. So you package it up and send it to the automation hub. That's the first issue because then you don't know the code of what goes in. So not so nice, so to say. In there can be many modules. Like we both write a role or a module like, I don't know, unarchive. So you write one and I write one. Which one is going to be used? I don't know. It's unknown. What I heard the target is that these collections will be containerized. And that's a bit more logical, where you can say, I want to run some playbook. It needs these 10 or 20 modules and a few virtual environments, maybe a Python environment, a Python version. That's a bit more logical to have it in a container. Then you can sort of capture everything you need to ensure that the runtime is working. I don't know. It's all unclear, and there's no hard decisions made, except it's gonna come. So I don't know. I'm a bit worried. Everyone was, by the way. Oh yeah, if you see a lot of whens, similar whens to tasks, that's probably an indication of not perfect code. Let's see. Oh yeah, happily it's not my role. I typically make a lot of mistakes too, by the way, so don't take my roles as perfect. But here's a when that's very similar here, and where was it? I think it's changed already. Here's a similar when. No, it's not similar. I think it's changed already. Is this Werner's? Okay. Oh, that's good. I didn't know DJ Wasabi is Werner, actually. Okay, thank you. But I don't see it, so it's not broken. But sometimes you see a repetition of the same when, and you can simplify that by using a block. Then you start the block, do a few tasks, and at the end say when something's true or false or so. Makes it a little easier to read. Blocks for starters or beginners are difficult to understand. So if you work in a team with juniors or beginners or so, take your time to explain that part or have people read that part or so. It's a bit difficult than the rest. And I personally, when something is default on any module, I don't specify it. There was a time when all the package modules had the state set as present, I think, as default. So you don't need to specify it. That's changed. I checked yesterday. All the package modules now don't have a default state anymore. So Surface, for example, it has a few parameters. Some things are default, like this one or auto here. Don't mention it again when you want to use auto. It's easier and simpler to not write it.
But if there is a state,
Yeah.
then it's good to have it declared with a variable desired state so that you can run
Yeah.
the role.
Yeah, like
and-
present or
and
latest
say
or
remove
absent.
the stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I switched that mentality. So in the beginning, many roles had an option to set, make sure it's latest, to update it. It makes the code much more difficult to read. I removed it. If you choose a role, you'll get it. That's my thought. And I know it's not a perfect
Yeah,
thought.
yeah, lifecycle management.
Just throw away the machine and start a new one. That's the thought. And lifecycle management is a good one. So if you have a present state or installed and think, okay, well, then it won't ever update. It's at least idempotent. That's nice. Otherwise, you'll start it now, and in a year time, and you get a different product. Many depend on some repository of code. That's where you could do releases, and that means for lifecycle management, you have to write something else to update it, basically.
Well, just a couple of things on that. Like, I think it's better to be explicit
Yeah.
about what you're setting rather than implicit about it.
Yeah.
Because we all know Ansible's never changed defaults.
Kubernetes does also.
Fair.
And the other thing is
Yeah.
on the whether or not it should be present or latest is it should be present,
Mhm.
but you should have a separate task for upgrading because upgrading is a different. Like,
Yeah.
it's not the same thing.
No, I agree. It is different. Yeah, and be explicit. Yeah, it can help, of course. I don't do it, and I realize that it's a bit of a risk. It increases the simplicity, but yeah, it can break. Or yeah, who knows what Ansible, whatever new version will bring, could change. I guess package will not go from present to absent, but who knows? Who knows? That's what testing's for. Next week, Ton van Putten is having a talk about Molecule. I'm not sure what he will tell, but Molecule is the key to testing, in my opinion. So if you test the current version of Ansible plus the next one, you also know what's coming. So if the next one is due in 2 weeks or so, I've checked all my tests. They are all failing now, by the way, but I'm sort of prepared for it because I started testing half a year ago with a new development version of Ansible. And sometimes you also really see instability in the development branch, that something stops working all of a sudden and starts working after some time. So Molecule and using Ansible Devil as the testing environment is a good trick. It's a simple trick. You can use Travis for that very easily. It's free, perfect. I'll do it. Well, or not, otherwise it won't be free. But I really like Travis and Molecule. It's a good combination.
Do you use Docs as well?
No, never looked at it even.
Then you can also test with multiple versions of Python.
Oh yeah. Python is going to switch from 2 to 3 now very quickly. Yeah? So still some things to do. Ansible Lint, Molecule by default includes Ansible Lint, and I sort of make the joke, it's always right. It's a bit strict because there are quite some rules and some are debatable, like, yeah, I don't care about the length of a line or so. It does make it more readable. Where's my cursor? Here. So this one is a very difficult one to understand and to improve on. This one checks if a command, what is it? Oh yeah, when you have command, you can say this command creates or removes something. That also makes it idempotent, by the way. But if it does not create anything or remove anything, it will say, yeah, but you cannot just use a command. That should not be. What you could do, your escape is a handler. So if you, I don't know, install something and you need some command, you notify that command in the handler and flush the handlers and continue. That's sort of escape. Lint is happy. Simplicity is less. So it works, but it's not perfect. This is a difficult one to manage. And another one where it's like, yeah, really, are you gonna? Yeah, that's a good one. Change when?
If you know that you're doing a read operation.
Yeah, for reads it's fine, of course. They won't really change anything. Change when to know is good. Yeah. The line length rule, I think it's 160 or so lines. It's quite long, so typically you can fit things in 160 characters. If it's really more, it does become less readable. So your main.yaml will get more complex, so to say. One trick to get out of here is to put the whole string in some variable, vars. Say, no, I don't care about this one. I know it's good. Yeah, you can also break the lines. That helps a bit, yeah. But this one I was in doubt a bit in the beginning, like, should you really do that? That does not improve anything. It does. The readability increases with keeping the lines a little shorter. And this is a debatable one, I know. You should have a good name, so think about it. So if you need to show it to your manager or so, or to a risk person, ensure that it has a good name. And for example, installing package X, you can already think that's not good enough because it does not always install. So more in the Puppet way, you could say ensuring blah, blah, blah is installed or so. That helps. It's maybe a bit too much to think about these names in a philosophical way, but okay. In my opinion, use YAML and no equals in your code. Makes it from top left to bottom right, it's more easy to read. Omit the default values, what I said, so not always true, but I like it. Less code, so also less typos. And I like the package or service, the generic modules, more than the apt or yum or sysctl. But sometimes you need apt or yum, for example. They have more features than package has. So sometimes you need to switch to the specific one. But that would mean if you write a role for multiple operating systems, that you need a few task blocks. One for yum, one for apt, one for zipper, one for I don't know what. So does make it more complex. Jeff Geerling, for example, sets his specifics for distribution in a separate file. That's smart, but then you have more files to read. So benefits to both. They're happy. Yes. Yeah, they're fine with it, right? So here's a question. Is this good? Take a moment or so. Let me get some swag for a good answer. Socks, IG Lion, many stickers, beer filter, and the speaker. So for the first, did anyone already make a pull request? No. Maybe I get to keep it. So you had a bit of a moment to read this. Is there a problem with these two tasks?
At least the second one has a problem because app runs on non-tabling systems as well.
Yep, correct.
And it might not be Apache 2.
That's correct too. Yeah, good one.
Red Hat has so far been consistent about Apache being HTTPD.
Yeah, but it changes.
Yep.
Completely correct.
You might also have a non-Red Hat enterprise Linux flavor floating around.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I see many problems. So let me take a microphone and walk to the screen. It's on. Yeah, it's on. Yeah, exactly. The distribution that's not very strong. I just realized that last week or so. But it's not very strong because it had many flavors like Red Hat, CentOS, I don't know, many. Fedora. You better use Ansible OS family. That states Red Hat or Debian or SUSE. It's far more generic. And typically they use the same pattern also, so that's easy. In this pattern, it's a bit weird that you install Apache on two operating systems or base it on the distribution here and the package manager there. That's very weird. What more? Yeah, it's not only Debian, could be more than Debian. I don't like it so much that the name differs and you can so clearly see it. The when, here it's a list, here it's not a list. So there's many mistakes in my opinion. Anyway, you had something to mention, eh? You are up for swag later or now. Socks are still there, they're nice, look. Very good socks. What I really like, it's a bit too long to fit in the screen, so I'll scroll in a bit. This is the task. It's sort of very simple to read. It works for any operating system if you expand this. So no one will, state present. That's the default value. So a manager will say, yeah, it's going to install something with Apache or so. So I understand what it does. And this is in the vars. The vars section is for variables that you don't expose to others, so they're difficult to override. You make sort of a lookup table and you look up the package that you're going to use there based on that list where OS family, scroll, that's it, where OS family is something you can look up. So that means the complexity is in vars and the simplicity is in the tasks. So in a year time, if you review this, it's like, there's nothing wrong with that. That's really simple. It does also mean that the complexity is in the variables, in the vars file. So a bit of a drawback. Yeah, go ahead.
Also, in this example versus the previous example,
Yeah.
if it wasn't Debian or Red Hat, that
Yeah.
actually fails, whereas the previous one does carry on.
Yeah, but this is too long to fit in the screen. What you could do is add a default section here that's empty, or you just guess HSPD for the rest.
Or you might want it to fail.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, if somebody spins up a Windows machine in the wrong network, I want it to fail.
Yeah. What roles do not have currently is specifications. So what you could do is add a block or a part at the beginning where you assert the environment, like is it really rel or Debian, and is something set here and there, is the value, is it a string or an integer? Currently you need to make that yourself. That's a bit annoying. I think next release, role specs will be introduced, which means that you can say with your role somewhere you state it should have the OS family, Red Hat and Debian, and others will fail. So if you start that role, we'll say, no, it doesn't meet the requirements, and I'm not going to do it. I think it's nicer than failing, because with a failure, you probably as a developer get a call like, it's failing, what's wrong? Yeah, true, you could want to fail.
Always.
You like to fail, so to say?
I love
Fail
failing.
fast and often.
Really.
Yeah.
All the time.
We do it too, mostly by typos.
Go back to the last screen for a second.
Sorry?
Can you go back a screen?
Yeah, was it here? Yeah. You can also follow this presentation again. So this is what I think about complexity. The defaults, this is for consumers of the role. This should be very simple. So think about that structure for a long time, so to say. Make it the best you can think of it. Make it as good as you can. The tasks will be a little more difficult because then you need to roll over things and assert things maybe, or when things. So this should be simple, should be readable. It will get a little more complex. This requires a bit of knowledge on Ansible, of course. And I think whereas a developer can really outlive is in this vars main. That's not going to be simple. That's your developer area. It can be complex. That's fine. For yourself, if you write roles, do try to keep it structured. Otherwise, you'll just have difficulty understanding it. But this is where the complexity should be. Personal opinion, because not everyone agrees to this pattern. But
you've asked a complex for just basically multi-OS support and stuff, right?
yeah, for example, or
So-
look up things. Or
So just make sure that you make it available with a certain pattern, and then put it on GitHub and say, well, I don't care about Debian. Somebody else.
no, I really like that. It's good if you write roles that they work on many operating systems.
But
Not
if you don't use the operating system, then
no,
it's
but
waste
it makes
of
the
time.
structure of your role much more
No,
quality
structure
higher.
it, structure
Yeah?
it with in mind the future growth
Yeah.
for more operators.
Yeah.
But don't code just for multiple operators for the sake of it if you're not going to use it.
No, I do think it's good. So because sometimes you can get away with a short trick or a escape, like this is RHEL or Debian, and I just do it like this, and that won't work if you write it for multiple operating systems. So it makes the structure of the role a bit more strong.
But if you're putting the complexity straight into the
Yeah.
vars and taking it out of the vars, then you don't actually have to worry about coding for multiple operating systems.
I mean, you can always add code later.
That's true.
I guess
So
the main point
just
is
do it
don't
with
take
the
the shortcuts.
that you need.
And
But don't over-architect.
yeah, if
Okay.
you're not going to use them, then you
Yeah.
have to just omit it and do
Leave it
later.
out.
It's all about kind of being a perfectionist or just doing something that works.
Yeah, and I have multiple occasions where I thought, oh, this is really good structure because I know RHEL. And then I tried to run it on Debian and I was like, oh, fuck, that's completely different. So then you could either decide on a new role, but that's silly. So if you rethink the structure.
No, keep on fucking with that.
Well said, Connor.
It's
Incorrect, my friend. You can't say that.
But what do you prefer then?
He knows.
Well, it's just, you know, as a software developer, it's so easy to over-architect. You're designing features that that aren't requested at the moment, that aren't needed. And you're just designing for the future, and they'll never be used. So you're just over-architecting.
Yeah, fair point. So you introduce a lot of complexity by looking at all the operating systems.
Yeah. So if you only need to support a particular operating system, support that operating system. If someone says we need to support other operating systems, maybe you say, hey, now I need to revisit this.
Yeah.
And I need to be able to look at what other operating systems I need to support.
So while you've got a merge request button here, it's also a great opportunity to be a part of the great thing.
Fair point. So by supporting so many things, it makes it far more complex.
Exactly. You make it overly complex for
Yeah.
your situation. It also makes it more difficult to maintain. So you're actually
Yeah.
introducing some sort of technical debt.
Immediately.
In what you're doing as a more generic design, which has some great benefits in some respects.
Yeah.
But those benefits will often never be realized. They're only
Fair.
potential benefits. And you're actually introducing real deficiencies and maintenance.
One of the first things you said at the beginning of this talk was that people never reuse modules; they just steal the inspiration from the code written. So it's like, why would you write something that supports everything if nobody's going to use it anyway?
Yeah, I do think I see it as a bit as of documentation. So it works because it's tested towards all the operating systems and different versions. So I can reuse it and I know that it works. Plus, I also understand how that product works, where you write the role for. So that's sort of a good trick.
But when you say that, are you writing your own private roles for your company into multiple operating systems? Because that's
Yeah, at ING, where you have a very homogeneous environment, so all one operating system, 2 versions. So makes it much more easy.
yeah. So you do not do it in ING, right?
I try to import these roles, and they typically work. So it's good to test on more.
When you are writing your own roles, you
Yeah.
don't support putting Red Hat if you're using Debian at ING, right? That's
No.
That's the point.
But if you want to expose these roles or release them, it's stronger if they support multiple operating systems.
ING probably won't let you
Well, there's
source
a
those
couple
roles
of
anyway,
mainstream
Of course, I mean,
systems.
Yeah.
That you
there's a limit. So
support,
yeah, sometimes you have an operating
Yeah,
system like this one is so off. I mean, nothing works on this one. Fine.
but how many operating systems do you support with your roles? And with all of them?
Well, some roles are not applicable, like EPEL, for example. That's a RHEL thing. So Alpine, Arch Linux, Debian, and Ubuntu, which are nearly the same. Red Hat, Fedora, CentOS, SUSE, BSD for one role, but it's really different. macOS, no. No.
Run all of my stuff in Mac.
Yeah. Anyway, so we're only halfway, and we have, I don't know, 2 minutes remaining. Good. I'm over already.
Red Hat family.
I'll just quickly click through the rest, see if there's very interesting stuff.
That's a little bit less discussion.
Yeah. This is quite a long example, so I'll quickly pass over it. It's a sort of a journey where you write a Java role and try to variabilize everything and simplify it and end up with something like this. So the task is very simple, and the rest, the difficult stuff, is in the vars. Yeah, that can help. Oh yeah, solve it at the right place. So if your software is just broken and has incorrect permissions, yeah, Ansible can glue everything together. Probably fix the software first. Bit rot, yeah. So you need to test stuff. So the chances of success on today's date is perfect. It's like 100%. And in time, it will fail because of dependencies or the environment changes. So test often. Travis can do that for you. You can set up a monthly or a weekly test or so. So I do that, and really you learn a lot from that. So like, oh, what happened there? Today, CentOS 8 Docker container was released, so everything's broken now. Yeah. Yeah, so my conclusion, try to keep it as simple as you can. And compatibility is a good one to keep in mind. And simple interface or simple variables are strong. It's a good thing to do. Here you go.
Thank you.